My name is Eric. 4 years, I thought I had a marriage that could withstand anything life threw at us. My wife, Jessica, and I had been together for more than a decade. We built a life side by side, sharing dreams, laughter, and what I believed was an unshakable bond. That's why it never even crossed my mind that everything could fall apart in a single night. It happened at a charity gala, one of those fancy high society events with too much champagne, forced small talk, and a dance floor where couples swayed beneath dazzling chandeliers. I've never been one for these gatherings, but Jessica loved them, and I loved seeing her happy. That night, she was breathtaking. Her emerald green dress shimmered in the golden light, her dark hair flowing in soft waves over her shoulders. She had that effortless beauty that made people stop and stare. But for years, I convinced myself that no matter how many people admired her, she would always come back to me. That illusion shattered the moment I saw her on the dance floor. It started as a barely noticeable shift, like a whisper at the back of my mind. A man approached her, a stranger, or at least that's what I thought at first. He was tall, self-assured, the kind of guy who carried himself like he belonged at the center of attention. I was at the bar, caught in a conversation with an old colleague, when I noticed the moment their eyes met. There was something there, something I recognized immediately but refused to accept. Then, a slow song started playing, and before I could even react, he reached for her hand, and she let him. I expected her to glance in my direction, to acknowledge me, to offer some kind of reassurance that this was nothing. But she didn't. Instead, she moved with him, her body melting into his as if I wasn't even in the room. I waited for her to pull away, to remember that I was there. But she never did. The way she smiled at him, the way his hand rested on her waist, it wasn't just a casual dance. It was intimate. Familiar. My stomach twisted as a sickening realization hit me. This wasn't some stranger to her. She knew him. And, worse, she wanted him. I could have walked over, could have interrupted them, could have demanded an explanation right then and there. But something inside me stopped me from making a scene. Because deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment betrayal. It had been happening for a long time. I had just been too blind to see it. So, I turned and walked away. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't look back. I didn't give her the satisfaction of an argument. I just left. And that's when she realized her mistake. Because the moment I disappeared through those ballroom doors, my absence spoke louder than any confrontation ever could. She regretted it. But regret was too little, too late. The night air hit me like a slap the moment I stepped outside. It was one of those crisp, clear nights where the sky stretched on forever, dotted with stars. And yet, I felt like I was suffocating. The muffled sound of music from the ballroom buzzed somewhere behind me, but it might as well have been a world away. My hands trembled as I loosened my tie, my heartbeat pounding so hard it drowned out everything else. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away. I kept walking, my footsteps echoing against the pavement, moving further and further from the glow of the venue, from the image of Jessica in another man's arms. A part of me expected her to come after me, to realize what she had done, to run out in some grand, dramatic gesture like in the movies. Some desperate plea to take it all back, to make things right. But she didn't. She stayed. And that silence, her choice to keep dancing instead of chasing after me, cut deeper than any fight we could have had. It told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a moment of bad judgment. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a crack in our marriage that had been there for a long time. I had just been too much of a fool to see it. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the keys. I leaned against the door, taking a deep breath, but it didn't help. My father's voice echoed in my head, something he had told me back when I first said I was going to marry Jessica. Love isn't just about passion, son. It's about knowing that when you're not in the room, your wife still protects your name. Tonight, in that ballroom, my name didn't exist. I didn't exist. The weight of it crushed me, pressing into my chest until I could barely breathe. My mind spun with 1,000 thoughts, but one thing stood out above the rest. I needed answers. Because if Jessica had already crossed that line, if she had already emotionally checked out of our marriage, I needed to know just how deep this betrayal ran. So instead of going home, I drove. The city blurred past me, Neon signs, streetlights, the hum of a world that kept moving even though mine had just shattered. I didn't even know where I was going. I just let the road take me, trying to outrun the image of Jessica's smile as she looked at him the way she used to look at me. My grip on the steering wheel tightened, my knuckles turning white, but I didn't care. I needed to get away from that ballroom, from the suffocating realization that my wife had chosen someone else. And she hadn't even bothered to hide it. I don't know how long I drove before I ended up outside a bar. Not the kind of place people go to be seen, just one of those quiet, dimly lit holes in the wall where men sit alone with their thoughts and drown whatever's haunting them at the bottom of a glass. I wasn't a drinker. Never had been. But tonight, I needed something to quiet the storm in my head. I pushed open the door, stepping inside. The bartender, a middle-aged guy with tired eyes, glanced up as I slid onto a stool. "Rough night?" he asked, pouring a glass of whiskey before I even said a word. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. "You have no idea." He didn't press for details. Just slid the glass toward me and went back to wiping down the counter. It was strange, the way strangers could sometimes sense things better than the people closest to you. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the amber liquid in my glass, not really drinking, just thinking. The longer I sat, the more the weight of the night pressed down on me. This wasn't just about a dance. It was about what it represented. Because a woman who loved her husband wouldn't dance with another man like that. A woman who respected her marriage wouldn't look at someone else the way Jessica had looked at him. And a husband who meant something to his wife wouldn't have been ignored. I ran a hand over my face, my mind circling the same question over and over again. How long had this been going on? How long had I been blind? I pulled out my phone, staring at the screen. No messages. No missed calls. No frantic texts asking where I was. Nothing. And that was when the truth finally hit me. She wasn't worried about me. She wasn't chasing after me, wasn't calling to explain, wasn't apologizing. Because she didn't care. Maybe she hadn't for a long time. That realization burned more than the whiskey I finally forced myself to drink. I needed answers. Real ones. Not just the broken pieces of the night replaying in my head. I scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I hadn't reached out to in years. Jared. My oldest friend. The best man at my wedding. The one person who had always been able to see through people better than I ever could. I hesitated for a second. Then I typed out a message. "I need to ask you something. And I need the truth, no matter how much it hurts." I hit send. And then I waited. The bar felt even colder now, my phone sitting on the counter, the screen dark except for that one message. Jared wasn't the type to leave people on read. If he saw it, he would reply. And if he didn't, maybe that would say more than anything else. I took another sip of whiskey, my mind spiraling through every possible scenario. Was I overreacting? Had I let my emotions get the best of me? Maybe it really was just a dance. Maybe she hadn't meant anything by it. Maybe I was the one making it bigger than it was. But then I thought about the way she looked at him. The way she didn't look at me. That wasn't nothing. And the fact that she still hadn't called or texted to check on me. That was the final nail in the coffin. A buzz against the wooden counter jolted me back to reality. I grabbed my phone, my pulse spiking as I saw Jared's name pop up. "Where are you? We need to talk. Now." There was no hesitation in his words. No casual "what's up?" or "everything okay?" Just pure urgency. I stared at the screen for a second before replying. "At Milligan's. Come alone." He didn't answer. But I knew he was already on his way. I downed the rest of my drink, signaling the bartender for another. He raised an eyebrow. "Rough night." I let out a bitter laugh. "Something like that." The truth was, I had no idea what kind of night this was turning into. All I knew was that something had flipped a switch inside me. And I wasn't just going to let it go. 15 minutes later, Jared walked in. He looked the same as always, broad shoulders, sharp eyes, the kind of guy who never missed a damn thing. He spotted me instantly, scanning the room like he was already preparing for whatever mess I was about to drop on him. Without a word, He crossed the bar and slid into the seat across from me. "Talk," I said, my voice low, cutting straight to the point. Jared exhaled, rubbing a hand over his jaw, his expression tight. "I was hoping you'd never ask me this, man." A slow chill crept up my spine. What the hell does that mean? He hesitated. Not because he didn't want to tell me, but because he didn't know how. That alone told me everything. I leaned forward, my grip tightening around the glass in my hand. "Jared," I warned. "Just say it." He let out a slow breath and finally met my eyes. "It means I've known for a while. I just didn't know how to tell you." The world around me blurred, the clinking of glasses, the low murmur of conversations, the faint hum of music playing from the speakers. None of it mattered. I felt like I'd just been sucker-punched. Known what? My voice was calm, eerily so, but my hands clenched into fists under the table. Jared looked away for a split second, then back at me. "That wasn't the first time she's danced with him." The words hit like bricks to my chest. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "How long?" Jared's expression darkened. "Months. Maybe longer." I never had proof. Just suspicions. But tonight. He shook his head. That confirmed everything. I forced myself to breathe, to stay composed even as my entire world tilted. "Who is he?" Jared hesitated, but this time I wasn't in the mood for patience. "Jared." My voice dropped, colder now. "Don't make me ask again." He sighed, then leaned in slightly. "His name's Ryan. Works in finance. Met Jessica through one of those charity organizations she's involved in. They got close fast. Too fast. Ryan." I didn't recognize the name, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that this man had been around my wife in ways I hadn't even realized. 1,000 thoughts crashed through my head at once. Did she love him? Had she been lying to me this entire time? How many nights had she come home, kissed me, and pretended everything was fine while secretly thinking about him? I clenched my jaw. "Does he know about me?" Jared gave me a look that answered my question before he even spoke. "Oh, he knows." The weight of those words settled over me like a suffocating fog. This wasn't just an affair that happened in the shadows, hidden away in secrecy. This was something worse. This was calculated. Ryan knew about me, and he didn't care. And neither did my wife. Jared's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. "What are you gonna do?" I didn't have an answer. Not yet. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to sit back and let this happen. I sat there, gripping the edge of the table, Jared's words playing over and over again in my mind. Months. Maybe longer. That meant that while I had been waking up next to her, sharing meals, laughing at stupid inside jokes, believing we were still us, she had been living a completely different reality. One where I was an afterthought. One where another man had taken a place that was supposed to belong to me. The thought made my stomach churn, a deep, burning nausea curling in my gut. I looked at Jared, my best friend, the guy who had been there for me since college, and I could see it in his expression. The weight of it. He had known. Or at least suspected. And he had said nothing. I wasn't angry at him. Not yet. I was still too caught up in the storm of my own emotions to direct my fury at anyone but her. I pushed my glass away, suddenly disgusted by the thought of numbing myself. I needed clarity. Not fog. "Tell me everything," I said, my voice steady but low. Jared ran a hand through his hair, hesitating. "Look, man, I wasn't sure at first. But then I started seeing things. Jessica started canceling plans, saying she was too tired to go out. But then I'd see pictures of her at events with him. I didn't know if you knew about him. If maybe it was innocent. But it didn't look innocent," clenched my jaw. "And you never thought to tell me?" He exhaled heavily. "I didn't want to wreck your marriage if I was wrong. I needed proof. And I didn't have it." I nodded slowly, but the betrayal still stung. Not just hers. His too. I stood up abruptly, grabbing my coat. Jared's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist before I could step away. "Wait. Don't do something stupid." I yanked my arm free, leveling him with a hard stare. I've already been stupid, Jared. For too damn long. Then I walked out. The drive home was a blur. My hands gripped the wheel tightly, my knuckles white. The city lights streaked past my windows, but all I could see was her. Jessica. Laughing. Dancing. Letting another man put his hands on her. How long had she been living this double life? And why the hell had I been so blind? By the time I pulled into our driveway, my heartbeat was a thunderous roar in my ears. The house was dark, except for a single light in the living room. She was home. She had come back from the gala. But she hadn't called. Hadn't texted. Hadn't even bothered to check where I was. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to steady the chaos inside me. I wasn't going to storm in and start screaming. No. That would be too easy for her. If she had been lying to me, if she had been lying this entire time, then I wanted to hear it from her mouth. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Jessica was on the couch, still in that emerald dress, curled up with a glass of wine. She looked up when she heard me. Her face flickered with something. Surprise? Guilt. Eric. You're home. That was it. No frantic questions about where I had gone. No guilt. No worry. Just 3 empty words. I shut the door behind me slowly, locking eyes with her. Yeah, I said, my voice calm. I'm home. Jessica tilted her head, studying me like she was trying to read my expression. Are you okay? You left so suddenly. I let out a quiet laugh, one with no humor in it. Suddenly, I repeated, shaking my head. Jessica, I walked away because you were too busy dancing with another man to even notice I was gone. Something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or irritation. It was hard to tell. She set down her wineglass and straightened her posture. It was just a dance, Eric. You're making a big deal out of nothing. There it was. The dismissal. The casual brush-off of everything I had seen, everything I had felt. As if the way she looked at him, the way she let him touch her, meant nothing. As if I was the one overreacting. I stepped closer, watching her carefully. Who is he? She blinked. What? The man you were dancing with. Who is he, Jessica? She shifted uncomfortably, and that was all the answer I needed. If it was really nothing, she would have laughed it off. If it was innocent, she wouldn't have hesitated. She reached for her wine again, taking a slow sip before answering. Just someone I know from the charity board. Just someone. The same way I was just her husband, apparently. I nodded, letting the silence stretch between us. I could see her getting nervous now, shifting under the weight of my gaze. Good. I wasn't going to let her twist this into me overreacting. I wasn't going to let her make me feel like the crazy one. I talked to Jared tonight, I said finally. Jessica's fingers tightened around her glass, but she tried to keep her expression neutral. Oh. He told me this isn't the first time you've danced with him. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. I don't know what Jared thinks he knows, but... No, I cut her off. No excuses. No pretty little lies. Just tell me the truth, Jessica. I looked her dead in the eye. Do you love him? The room went still. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. That moment of hesitation felt like a gunshot to my chest. That was my answer. I let out a slow breath, nodding to myself. All right. Her brows furrowed. All right. That's all you have to say. I met her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I really saw her. Not the woman I married. Not the woman I built a life with. Just a stranger. A stranger sitting in my home, wearing my wife's face. No, I said quietly. That's not all I have to say. And then, without another word, I turned and walked away. The hallway felt longer than usual. My own footsteps sounded foreign, too loud in a house that suddenly felt like a stranger's. The walls, the furniture, the framed pictures, it was all the same, and yet it felt different. Smaller. Suffocating. Like the very foundation of this place had known the truth before I did. My mind wasn't racing anymore. It had settled into something else. Something colder. Behind me, Jessica didn't move. I could feel her watching me, waiting, expecting me to turn around, to demand an explanation, to fight for her like some desperate fool who still believed there was something worth saving. But I didn't turn. Because this wasn't about fighting anymore. This wasn't about proving a point, or yelling, or demanding apologies that wouldn't mean a damn thing. This was about accepting what I had been too blind to see for far too long. When I reached our bedroom, I didn't slam the door. Didn't throw anything. Didn't punch a wall like some broken-hearted man who didn't know what to do with his rage. No. My anger wasn't loud. It was quiet. Heavy. The kind that settled deep in your bones and never left. I walked straight to the closet and pulled out a suitcase. And that's when I heard it. Her footsteps. Hesitant, but deliberate. She stopped in the doorway, her silhouette outlined in the dim glow from the hallway. "Eric," she said softly, "what are you doing?" Her voice had changed. It wasn't defensive anymore. It was cautious. Unsure. I didn't answer right away. I just kept pulling out clothes, folding them, setting them neatly in the suitcase. Not much. Just enough for a few nights. Because I needed space. I needed air. And I sure as hell wasn't going to sleep in the same bed as the woman who just hesitated when I asked if she loved another man. "Eric," she tried again, stepping closer. Can we talk about this?" I let out a quiet laugh, shaking my head as I zipped the suitcase shut. "Now you want to talk." I finally turned to face her. "Where was that when I walked out of that gala?" She flinched, as if the memory of it was just now catching up to her. I didn't know what to say. I studied her for a moment. The way she shifted on her feet. The way her fingers twisted together in front of her. There was regret there, but not the kind I wanted to see. It wasn't regret for hurting me. It was regret for getting caught. "You still haven't answered my question," I said, my voice quieter now. "Do you love him?" She swallowed, her gaze darting to the floor. "I don't know." That was it. That was all she had to say. I let out a breath, rubbing a hand over my face. "You don't know," I repeated, as if saying it again would somehow make it less pathetic. "How the hell do you not know, Jessica? Either you do or you don't." She finally looked up at me, her eyes glistening with something I couldn't quite name. "I didn't plan for any of this to happen," she whispered. "It just did." I laughed again, but this time it wasn't bitter. It was just empty. "Yeah," I murmured. "That makes two of us." I grabbed the handle of my suitcase and brushed past her. She reached out, her fingers grazing my arm. "Please," she murmured. "Just stay. Let's figure this out." I stopped. Just for a second. Just long enough to let her words settle. Then, I turned my head slightly. "I think you already did." And with that, I walked out. The night air was crisp and cold, hitting me the second I stepped onto the porch. I stood there for a moment, letting it sink in. Letting myself feel it. The end of something I had spent years building. The unraveling of everything I had thought was unbreakable. I could go to a hotel. I could go back to that bar, sit in the dark with a glass of whiskey, and let my thoughts spiral until the sun came up. I could just drive. Keep going until the city lights faded into nothing, until I didn't have to think about the fact that my wife had just admitted, not with words, but with hesitation, that she felt something for another man. But no matter where I went, the truth would still be the same. Jessica had already left me a long time ago. I was just now catching up. My phone buzzed in my pocket, jolting me back. I pulled it out and stared at the screen. "Jared." I hesitated, then answered. "Yeah." His voice was quiet but firm. "Where are you?" I exhaled. Left a pause. Then, "Leaving." He sighed. "Come here." I frowned. "Where's here?" "I'm at a diner," he said. "Figured you'd need some food. And someone to talk to." I glanced back at the house, the warm glow spilling from the windows, Jessica's silhouette just inside. For a split second, I wondered if she'd come after me. If she'd run out, grab my hand, beg me to stay. But she didn't. I turned back to my car. "Text me the address." And then I drove. Not toward the past. but toward whatever the hell came next. The city lights blurred past me as I drove, my mind a storm of thoughts I couldn't quite silence. My fingers gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, the tension in my body refusing to ease even as I forced myself to focus on the road. Jared's message had already come through, an old diner on the outskirts of town, the kind of place that stayed open all night and served coffee strong enough to keep ghosts away. I needed that, because Jessica's ghost was already haunting me. Not her, exactly. She was still very much alive, probably still sitting in our house, staring at the empty doorway where I had walked out. No, it wasn't her that clung to me like an unwanted weight, it was the memories. The years we had spent building something I thought was unbreakable. The realization that all of it, the laughter, the late-night talks, the small, stupid moments of affection, had meant nothing in the end. I had been fighting for something she had already abandoned. That was the real betrayal. Not just the dance. Not just Ryan. Not just the fact that she let another man put his hands on her. It was the fact that she hadn't even tried to stop me when I left. The diner's neon sign flickered as I pulled into the parking lot, its bright glow casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. Through the window, I spotted Jared already seated in a booth, a cup of coffee in front of him. He looked up when I stepped inside, giving me a nod before gesturing to the seat across from him. I slid into the booth without a word. The smell of coffee and grease filled the air, familiar, grounding in a way I hadn't expected. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes, appeared at my side almost instantly, setting down a menu. I didn't bother looking at it. "Coffee," I muttered. "Black." She nodded and walked away. Jared studied me for a moment before leaning forward. "You look like hell." I let out a dry laugh. "Feel like it too." He didn't push, didn't ask if I was okay. He knew better than that. Instead, he took a sip of his coffee, watching me over the rim of his cup. "So," he said finally, "what now?" I stared at the table, tracing an invisible pattern across the worn surface. "That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?" Jared sighed, setting his cup down with a quiet clink. "I don't know what you want me to say, man. You walked out. But she didn't run after you." His voice was steady. "That tells you everything you need to know." I nodded, swallowing against the lump in my throat. "Yeah, it does." Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. The waitress returned with my coffee, setting it down without a word before disappearing again. I wrapped my hands around the cup, letting the warmth seep into my fingers. "You think she's gonna call?" I asked, my voice quieter now. Jared exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. "I don't know, Eric. But if she does, are you gonna pick up?" I didn't answer right away. Because I wasn't sure. Did I want to hear whatever excuse she had prepared? Was she regretting it? Did she even care? Or was she relieved that I had made the decision for her? I took a slow sip of coffee, my thoughts tangled in the wreckage of my marriage. "I guess we'll find out." And in that moment, I wasn't sure if I even wanted to. My phone vibrated on the table. Jared and I both glanced at it at the same time. The name flashing across the screen made my stomach clench. "Jessica." Jared exhaled sharply. "Well, there it is." I stared at the phone, letting it buzz against the table. My fingers twitched, but I didn't reach for it. I didn't need to hear whatever excuse she had prepared, whatever damage control she was about to attempt. Because for the first time since this all started, I knew the truth. She wasn't calling because she wanted to fix things. She was calling because she had lost control of the situation. And I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of thinking I was still waiting for her. I silenced the call, shoving the phone back into my pocket. Jared raised an eyebrow. "Not gonna answer?" I shook my head. "No. I don't need to hear it." A small smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "Good." For the first time that night, I let out a breath that didn't feel like it was carrying the weight of the world. I picked up my coffee and took a slow sip, savoring the warmth. The air felt lighter. The weight on my chest lifted, inch by inch. Jessica had made her choice. And now, I was making mine. I wasn't going to let this break me. I wasn't going to let her betrayal define my future. Tomorrow, I would start figuring out what came next, whether that meant getting a lawyer, moving out, or rebuilding my life from scratch. But tonight, I was just going to sit in this diner, drink my coffee, and enjoy the simple fact that I was free. And for the first time in years, I truly felt free. Thank you for visiting my YouTube channel. Your support, likes, and comments truly inspire me to create even more engaging content. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. You're a part of this amazing community, and I'm thrilled to share my stories with you. See you in the next video on YouTube.